Selina Prescott stood in the Manhattan District Court lobby, neon lights streaming through the glass walls, reflecting a resolute yet anxious expression on her face. She was a renowned attorney, born into a wealthy family, raised on strict rules and lofty ideals of justice. Her career had been built on razor-sharp skills in both civil and criminal litigation, combined with persuasive oratory. But today, her heart was heavy with unease. Her dearest friend, Emily Carter, had vanished without a trace after a charity gala for children at Brooklyn Hall. The Carter family had asked Selina to intervene. She believed that, beneath the dazzling lights and dignified atmosphere, someone had set a trap to cast shadows of suspicion over Emily. Selina inhaled deeply, swept aside her golden hair, and glanced at each passing colleague. Every step seemed to echo a bell in her mind. What must she do to uncover the truth about Emily? All the documents she'd gathered weren't enough to persuade the authorities to act swiftly. The police believed Emily might have disappeared of her own accord, perhaps implicated in a pharmaceutical smuggling ring. But to Selina, it was a malicious slander. She felt a cold breeze linger, an unsettling chill not from New York's weather but from the ominous gateway of the underground criminal network. "I cannot stand idle," she thought, her eyes glinting with determination. As the minute hand struck 9 a.m., she strode inside toward the Manhattan District Medical Examiner's office, adjacent to the courthouse. Outside, the walls were painted a cold gray, and a pair of intercom buttons on the steel door signaled the stringent security within. Selina had never stepped into that room before. The garish fluorescent lights gliding over rows of autopsy tables, bodies lying motionless awaiting examination. But now, she had to see Dr. Alexander Vincent Blake, a mysterious and aloof forensic pathologist with a prodigious talent for unraveling the truth from bruises and chemical residues. The forensic waiting area was deserted, furnished with a few green padded chairs, the once white walls now faded. The steady hum of the air conditioner mingled with the distinctive scent of antiseptic. Selina pressed the intercom button, her heart pounding. After a few seconds, the heavy door clicked open, revealing a tall, slender man with black hair flecked with silver, a face that exuded coldness, and deep blue eyes like an early morning sky. A crisp white lab coat hugged his broad shoulders, a stethoscope draped around his neck. This was Vincent, the pathologist nicknamed the Ice Fingers for his ruthless precision. "You're Selina Prescott?" he asked in a low voice. "I understand you want an autopsy for Emily Carter." Selina nodded, striving to appear confident. "Yes, Dr. Blake. Here is the Carter family's authorization letter, along with a preliminary investigation order. They want an official determination of cause of death. I need to outline a legal basis based on the autopsy findings." Vincent frowned, speaking matter-of-factly yet coldly. "The autopsy will take at least 48 hours from the time I receive the body. You know we're busy. We might expedite it. But I can't promise anything." Selina felt a momentary flinch at his words expedite. But can't promise. Beneath that aloof exterior, she sensed that Vincent was under pressure from above, hence his caution. But her resolve made him pause, his eyes searching. "The Carters are well connected. Are you here only to demand an autopsy? Or do you intend to dig deeper?" She drew a long breath, then answered calmly, "I'm here to ensure the autopsy proceeds exactly according to legal requirements. And more than that, I want to monitor every step so that no critical evidence is overlooked." Selina's eyes shone with determination, rendering Vincent momentarily speechless. He stared as if assessing her sincerity. Finally, he cleared his throat and pressed a button to summon his assistant. "Prepare body number 3 from storage, begin the paperwork." He looked at Selina, nodding slightly. "Wait in exam room 2. I'll show you the preliminary autopsy report. But don't expect any clear lead right away." Selina pressed her lips together but remained unflinching. Memories of Emily flooded her mind, the two friends sitting on a park bench, reminiscing about their college days, afternoons spent grabbing ice cream after classes, laughter echoing under fiery maple trees. They once believed they'd face the world together, but now, Emily lay shattered, a tiny flame lost in a bleak sky. Exam room 2 was cramped, containing only a small table with a few outdated medical journals and a water dispenser. Selina sat down, quietly flipping open her notebook to jot legal notes. She knew Vincent wouldn't easily hand over vital files. He was taciturn, fiercely protective of his information. Yet she was determined to pursue the truth. Once she'd embarked on this path, there was no turning back. Over an hour later, the door cracked open. Vincent entered, his face still cold, though his gaze was slightly less severe. He handed Selina a thick dossier, Emily's personal profile, the external exam report, autopsy photographs, and initial notes. Here are all the findings from the external and preliminary examination. Take a look, he said, bending slightly. But I can't guarantee a more in-depth autopsy will yield quick results. Be patient. Selina accepted the files, placing her hands gently on them, her eyes scanning the first page. There was a photograph of Emily lying motionless, eyes closed, her face pale and mottled purple. Faint bruising was visible around her neck, but Vincent's preliminary conclusion read only, signs of internal airway trauma, suspect asphyxia. No external lacerations, no stab wounds. Insufficient to determine cause. Selina underlined in red, internal organs. She murmured. The question lingered in her mind, had Emily been strangled? Or forced to inhale a toxin? Vincent noticed her intense focus but remained composed. I need to test tissue and blood samples to see if any unusual toxins or bacteria are present. Results will go to the biochemistry department. I can't confirm anything until those results are back. As afternoon waned, golden light streamed through the windows, casting mottled patterns on the concrete floor. Selina left the waiting room, walking along the autopsy corridor, which still retained its usual quiet, tightly closed lab doors, technicians hunched over microscopes, sealed specimen bags hanging from hooks. It was as if the city's heart beat in silence here, yet inside it lay countless mysteries of death. She descended to the basement where Emily's body awaited. Vincent stood at the top of the stairs, his expression unyielding. May I view the body for a moment? She said, striving to keep her voice steady. Keep it brief. I have to get back soon, he replied coldly, stepping aside and pushing open the heavy steel door. They entered a room bathed in soft yellow light, eerily pristine yet chilling. Emily's body lay supine on a gleaming stainless steel table, arms outstretched, her neck supported by a rubber pad. A crisp white sheet covered her lower body, leaving her chest and neck exposed. Selina bit her lip, shutting her eyes to focus. She caught a faint antiseptic scent mingled with a trace of iron. Under the direct lights, the bruises around Emily's neck stood out more distinctly. She remembered Emily's radiant smile as they graduated with their law degrees from Columbia 2 years prior. She could never have imagined that now, that delicate skin was stained dark. Emily had promised to fight for justice by her side, yet here she lay, motionless, the most vivid proof of injustice. Vincent gently tilted Emily's neck, observing carefully as his thin fingers brushed over the bruises. He whispered, "It appears the victim was strangled from within. But I need to examine tissue around the neck thoroughly to determine the exact pressure applied. Tissue samples have already been sent." Selina nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I just want the court to secure justice for Emily." Her eyes shone with sorrow and anger. Vincent met her gaze, likely sensing the invisible weight she bore. He looked down, then replaced the sheet and stepped out. Selina stood still for a moment, breathing deeply, then gently placed her hand on her friend's body one last time, whispering, "Emily, I promise I'll do everything I can." Tears traced down her cheeks, but at the same time, a fierce flame of determination blazed inside her. She understood that only by transcending grief and fear could she find the one who had stolen her friend's life. As dusk settled, people hurried down the halls of the medical examiner's office. Selina returned to the waiting room and carefully arranged her files. Doubts and theories swirled in her mind. Was Emily a victim of someone who knew too many secrets? Or was this merely the first clue in a much larger chain of crimes? She whispered to herself, once the autopsy results come back, we'll move immediately. Outside, New York glowed with night lights. Skyscrapers soared in a sea of illumination, streetlights glinted on dewy roads. Yellow taxis zipped by, their horns slicing through the air. Many still crowded around 24-hour diners, chatter mixed with the sound of knives slicing through food. Life went on, heedless of the fact that inside that autopsy room lay an innocent girl who had died unjustly. Selina walked out to the staff parking lot behind the medical examiner's building. The black SUV rolled to a slow stop. She climbed in, started the engine, then closed her eyes, trying to dispel the heaviness settling in her chest. In the distance, skyscrapers reflected golden lights, radiant yet cold. She whispered to herself, "Tonight, I won't rest. I must stay awake until we have results." Wiping away her remaining tears, Selina turned on the car stereo. A melancholic classical piece by Schubert floated through the cabin, drifting in the air. She drove off, heading back to her Upper East Side apartment, where her family awaited any news. Though the apartment was grand, with panoramic city views, a shadow of murder ruled inside, urging her to keep fighting. The faint dawn light of a new day filtered through the curtains of Selina Prescott's apartment. Her elegant bedroom was tastefully decorated in muted grays, with a frosted glass bedside lamp and an oil painting of the Brooklyn waterfront. Selina awoke, a swirl of emotions, worry, restlessness, coursing through her. She rose from her walnut bed frame, walked to her vanity, and looked into the mirror. Her eyes were rimmed dark from a restless night, yet the resolve still shone brightly. She quickly changed into a charcoal gray skirt suit, a crisp white blouse, tied her hair neatly, and slipped into polished black heels. Breakfast was served in the refined kitchen. Selina's parents had prepared toast, soft-boiled eggs, and cappuccinos with frothy milk. They offered words of encouragement. "Are you confident? We'll cooperate fully with the medical examiner to uncover the truth." But Selina responded lightly, "I can handle this. Please don't worry." Her father nodded, pride and concern mingling in his eyes. Her mother smiled reassuringly, "Remember to eat well." She left the mansion and climbed into her sleek black SUV. New York streets were already more crowded now. Engines roared, the rhythmic tapping of pedestrian footsteps, street vendors calling out. Selina drove back to the Manhattan District Medical Examiner's office. As she entered the lobby, she saw Vincent Blake standing outside his office, radiating an air of absolute calm. He was reading documents, his black hair flecked with silver as always, impeccably styled. "Good morning, Dr. Blake," Selina greeted, approaching as if visiting an ally, though in truth they were merely allies of convenience. Vincent looked up, his deep blue eyes seemingly not noticing the worry lines on her forehead. He inclined his head slightly, his voice as cold as ever. "The results for the tissue and blood samples from Emily are ready. Please come into my office." Selina stepped into his small office, which contained a dark wood desk, shelves of medical texts, and a mini fridge storing specimens. On his desk was a black and white printout of the test results. Vincent placed the paper before her, rubbing his tired eyes. "The analysis shows the presence of a rare neurotoxin, an unlisted synthetic compound not recognized by U.S. regulations. It acts on neuromuscular junctions, causing mechanical asphyxiation without leaving typical external bruising." Selina took a sharp breath, her fingers trembling as she held the results. "A synthetic neurotoxin. Omega-7 derivative?" she whispered. Vincent nodded, his eyes cold. "Exactly. This toxin is only produced in clandestine labs. Emily must have been injected or forced to inhale it. The blood distribution of the toxin is uniform, indicating she couldn't have injected herself. It was likely introduced into her drink or the air she breathed. Selina folded the report, her mind racing. To clarify, we need to know, did Emily encounter an old enemy? Or was she an unwitting target because of documents she held? She looked Vincent dead in the eyes, resolve mixed with caution. I want us. She hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I want you and me to collaborate on this. Vincent furrowed his brow, his gaze becoming sharper. Us? He asked curtly, as if confirming whether she truly wanted his deep involvement. Selina nodded. I believe that with your forensic expertise and my legal acumen, we can swiftly bring the perpetrator to light. I will handle the legal side, as forensics, you handle the examinations. Only by working together can we move quickly. Vincent fell silent for a few seconds, then nodded firmly. I will provide forensic expertise. The investigative work will be your responsibility in coordination with the police. I do not want to get entangled in politics or dark forces. Determination reappeared on his face. Selina smiled softly. That's fine. I only need your expertise. I'll handle everything else. She added, Michael Carter, Emily's father, has asked me to uncover the truth. You know well that when a young woman's body is desecrated in this manner, her family will not accept it as an accident. Quickly, Vincent escorted Selina through the autopsy wing. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a cold, white glow over the gleaming stainless steel tables. The overpowering smell of disinfectant lingered, and nearby, the body conveyance machine emitted a low hum. Other cadavers lay in sealed glass cabinets, enveloped in a deathly silence. Selina noticed dried blood splattered in one corner of the autopsy room. Its modernity and the aura of mourning sent a shiver down her spine. Vincent pointed to a curtain shielding a smaller room. You may observe Emily's body in here, but prepare yourself. It won't be what you're used to. Selina inhaled deeply, attempting to steady herself. I'm ready. They entered the adjacent chamber, where Emily's body lay, now sewn up to preserve its original posture. Her knees were slightly bent, her face still delicate, though her eyelids were half closed, her lips a pale blue, needle puncture marks were visible. The white fabric behind her accentuated the stark presentation of the corpse. Selina bit her lip and watched intently. She ran her finger along the edge of the gurney, eyes intense. The toxin was distributed throughout her internal organs. Are there any injection sites? Or was it oral? Vincent shifted aside, donning medical gloves to point out faint scars. On the front of her left upper arm are a few very minor punctures, almost imperceptible, 30-gauge needle marks. But a clever killer can kill with a single injection in the deltoid or thigh. No unusual bacteria were found. Fundamentally, the victim died of mechanical asphyxia. There was massive contraction of diaphragmatic and neck muscles. Selina exhaled, her eyes taut. So the perpetrator deliberately gagged her? Yet the signs of strangulation aren't obvious externally. They used the toxin to obscure traces, then dumped the body in the outskirts to make it seem like suicide or an accident. She fell silent, her thoughts racing. Emily certainly didn't go willingly. Her eyes began to gleam with a thirst for vengeance and a burning need to uncover the truth. Vincent grew silent, his voice now cold. Indeed. The killer is ruthless and devoid of humanity. They understand forensic procedures well enough to conceal any trace, at least until the body reached us. But no one can hide forever. He continued, his expression grave. You must steel yourself. When we identify the mastermind, someone will be held responsible. Are you prepared to step into the criminal underworld and face ruthless people? Selina lifted her gaze, her voice hoarse with emotion. I will not retreat. For Emily. I need justice for her. Only action can push back the darkness. She nodded resolutely. Inside, Vincent felt a flicker of emotion at her iron will. yet he maintained his stoic demeanor even as his heart stirred. Together they left the autopsy suite, leaving behind a body and wrenching mysteries. At noon, Selina met with the lead detective on Emily's missing persons file. Under the watchful eye of Detective Peterson, a middle-aged man with graying stubble and steely eyes, she summarized the discovery of Emily's body and the initial autopsy findings. Peterson nodded seriously. "You did well. We'll continue reviewing traffic cameras to trace the vehicle that transported the body out of the city. However, to prove premeditated murder, we need corroborating evidence. I suggest you work closely with Blake. That toxin is extremely rare, only emerging from a handful of clandestine labs." Selina listened attentively, taking meticulous notes. She asked, "Can we pinpoint the toxin's precise origin? Or can we only trace its chemical fingerprint to link it to a certain criminal network?" Peterson nodded. "If Blake analyzes it in detail, he may detect a signature isotope to identify the lab. But that takes time." Selina placed her hand on her chin, eyes unwavering. "I'll provide every resource needed. My network of attorneys and experts stands ready to assist." Peterson recalled the determination on her face, then his expression brightened. "Good. We'll leverage that network. But remember, the challenges ahead will be brutal. Don't let your relationship with Blake become a legal liability." Selina glanced at Vincent, who sat quietly beside her with his own dossier. His gaze seemed to pierce through her resolve. He sighed softly, picking up a pen to take notes. Once again, they felt a connection deeper than mere professional interest, a shared drive to pursue the truth. It was striking how their contrasting personalities, her passionate, forthright speech versus his cold, guarded silence, balanced and supported each other. By late afternoon, Selina left the precinct and returned to her SUV. She closed her eyes for a moment, muttering, "The game has only begun. Vincent, be ready for the days ahead. Who knows how treacherous this path will be?" Meanwhile, Vincent sat in the medical examiner's office, eyes fixed on the toxin analysis report displayed on his screen. Omega-7. Clandestine pharmaceutical syndicate. Emily. And now, Selina is involved. This winter will be frigid indeed. By the third morning, New York had grown even colder. Northeast winds howled through the skyscrapers. A thin mist clung to the streets, lending a damp, musty quality to the air. Selina Prescott sat in the Harrington and Prescott Notary Office, a prestigious law firm co-founded by her father, reviewing Emily Carter's financial records and her business associates. The office was on the 12th floor of a gleaming glass building, overlooking the East River. Outside, rippling waves reflected the sunlight, but inside, tension filled the room, tinted with suspicion. Leaning back in her black leather chair, she held a steaming cup of coffee, eyes scanning documents, contracts, transfer receipts, invoices showing Emily's support for an anti-trafficking charity. Any irregularity in the transactional chain could be a clue. She noticed a large sum deposited into Emily's account from an entity called Pharos Laboratories LLC, registered under multiple shell corporations. The deposit was made just 3 weeks before Emily's disappearance. Selina frowned, muttering, "Pharos Laboratories. But this company doesn't appear in any reputable medical or scientific records. It exists only on paper through overlapping registrations. Something is clearly amiss." She set down her coffee and moved to a side table, opened her laptop, and began searching federal databases for Pharos Laboratories. Typing its name yielded only sparse information. Registered in Delaware, the listed director was an unfamiliar name, Evan Shaw, with a Manhattan P.O. Box address. No R/&D history, no official website. The rhythmic tapping on the laptop keys made Selina's mind race faster. She opened the federal financial disclosure page and saw that Pharos had substantial back taxes owed, soon to be frozen. Strangely, immediately after the large deposit to Emily's account, Pharos was removed from the delinquent list and granted nearly $1 million in tax exemption. The documentation offered no explanation. Selina looked up, her eyes sharp. Someone's cover-up is becoming increasingly blatant. Whoever is behind this has enough influence to manipulate tax records. She paused her laptop investigation and immediately called Vincent's office from her internal line. "Dr. Blake, I've uncovered a suspicious transaction related to Emily. Could you meet me at the cafe across the street? I'd like to discuss this in person." The phone screen flashed Vincent Blake, vibrating lightly before he answered. "I'm tied up examining another sample. Give me 30 minutes. His tone remained cold, but she detected a slight quickening in his voice. Selina nodded, though he couldn't see her, and returned to arranging her files as she waited. Half an hour later, Vincent appeared in the doorway of a small cafe on Fifth Avenue. He wore a long gray coat and a wool scarf, looking solemn yet authoritative. Spotting Selina seated by a window, he seemed momentarily surprised. He wasn't accustomed to her choosing quiet, well-lit spaces to work. He approached and placed a document bag on the table, then slowly sat opposite her. Selina lifted her cappuccino, her eyes bright when she saw him. "Thank you for coming." After a brief pause, she slid her laptop across the table. "These are the records related to the payment from Pharos Laboratories to Emily." He leaned in, focused on the screen. Numbers and figures flickered under the cafe's light. Vincent murmured, $500,000? And it was transferred 3 weeks before Emily disappeared. He paused, massaging his temple. She could have been coerced into providing information or used as bait. This money might be a bribe from some underground syndicate tied to illicit pharmaceuticals. Selina furrowed her brow, staring at the screen. She claimed to be collecting for charity. No one heard her mention Pharos. Only a few encrypted emails from a Proton mail address she said was part of an internal investigation. "I suspect they were targeting a narcotics ring. Emily likely risked everything to protect victims, and the criminals forced her to remain silent." She swallowed, exhaling deeply. "If we can't decrypt those emails, we can't know what precisely she uncovered. But Pharos is the first link." Vincent closed the laptop, meeting her gaze, his expression contemplative. "We need speed. I'll ask the biochemistry division to analyze chemical samples from their lab. But we also need to identify who Evan Shaw, the nominal director of Pharos, really is. It could be just a front." He narrowed his eyes and murmured into the air, "Pharos. Proton mail." Selina heard him clearly. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Vincent shrugged. "Everything hidden in criminal circles is tied to encryption. If we can break those ciphers, we can trace the mail servers and track IP addresses." Selina breathed out, "You're brilliant." She spoke half in jest, but beneath her compliment lay a haunting awareness of the dangers ahead. She placed her hand on the table, as if to calm her racing heart. "Can you access their lab undetected?" He looked at her, his gaze sharp. "I have a few trusted colleagues at a private lab. They'll help obtain samples discreetly. But you must promise not to reveal this to the outside, especially not to the media." Selina nodded resolutely. "I promise." She smiled, feeling some of her tension lift. Before they could continue, a well-dressed man in a black suit approached, his demeanor elegant but his eyes icy. He flashed an ID badge that read Det. Jackson Peterson, NYPD Homicide Division, and addressed Vincent. "Dr. Blake, thanks for coming. I have some questions that require your immediate response." He barely glanced at Selina, but she remained composed and said, "Detective Peterson, we are cooperating fully." Peterson nodded, turning to Vincent. His voice was hoarse. "I hear you've been examining more samples. Can you share any initial findings? Don't make us wait." Vincent stood, narrowing his eyes at Selina, as if waiting for her to intervene. She offered a polite smile and opened her laptop, bringing up a more detailed file. "Detective Peterson, here is the preliminary analysis: omega-7 synthetic neurotoxin, primary effects leading to respiratory failure and asphyxia. She explained the data and examination images in clear detail. Peterson listened intently, nodding. His inscrutable eyes then rested on Selina, a mix of satisfaction and grudging respect in his gaze. Once she had finished, he stroked his chin. "You've done well. I'll request assistance from the Federal Bureau of Chemistry to trace the toxin's origin. But Dr. Blake, you must keep in direct contact with me. Every sample and piece of evidence you gather must be reported. We cannot leave any gaps." Vincent nodded, face solemn. "I will comply, but timelines depend on the analysis results." Peterson stood, glancing briefly at Selina. "Mr. Carter will be informed soon. I believe you're giving this your all. But remain cautious, this road won't be simple." Selina watched Vincent, who sat quietly clutching his dossier. His eyes seemed to know all the unspoken thoughts behind her determination. He sighed softly, moved his pen to jot notes. Once again, they recognized that their bond ran deeper than mere professional cooperation. They shared a burning drive to uncover the truth. The surprise nestling in this story was that their clashing personalities, her fiery outspokenness and his frosty reserve, created a perfect balance, each bolstering the other. By late afternoon, Selina departed the cafe and returned to her office. Her nerves were taut yet invigorated by the mounting clues. She called Rick Alvarez, Emily's private investigator and former colleague. "Rick, I've discovered documents related to Pharos Laboratories. We must meet urgently to analyze them." Rick's enthusiastic voice came through. "Great. I'll be there ASAP." The investigation broadened, shedding light on the darkness hidden behind those satellite shell companies, a tangled, deceitful drama. As dusk fell, Selina sat at her desk beneath the soft glow of an electric candle. She leafed through documents, carefully annotating Pharos, proton male, omega-7. Each tiny clue added to the growing mystery. Meanwhile, Vincent busied himself in the medical examiner's office, submitting the toxin analysis to the Federal Bureau of Chemistry. He leaned on his elbow at the desk, gazing out the window at the city descending into night. Darkness crept into every alley under scattered streetlights. He thought to himself, "Selina has entered this world. She's venturing deeper regardless of the danger. I must protect her, even if it costs me my freedom, my career." On a weekend when New York's chill deepened and northeast winds felt sharper, Selina Prescott sat in a dimly lit cafe tucked away in a Chinatown alley. A warm aroma of floral tea drifted through the air. She waited for Rick Alvarez inside, holding a printed schematic of an underground facility in Williamsburg. Rick arrived wearing dusty khaki clothes, a furrow in his brow, and keen eyes. He smiled faintly at her, patting her shoulder. "I've located the address. This is where Pharos once rented a warehouse for storing illicit chemicals." Selina inhaled, her voice husky with excitement. "Are you sure it's still active? Not abandoned long ago?" Rick laid the schematic on the table, pointing to a stretch of vacant land beside the railroad tracks. "My surveillance data shows trucks coming and going at midnight. The old chemical pumps are still running. There are signs of people dumping waste into the holding tanks." He leaned closer, whispering, "I've arranged an underground contact. We can enter through a small hatch on the side." Selina cast a glance, her face a mix of allure and resolve. "Tonight, we go in. No traces left behind." As dusk descended, the Williamsburg streets grew quiet, only a few figures drifting by. Selina and Rick stood before a rusted steel door, the warehouse looming darkly. Selina donned leather gloves and carefully unlocked the security latch Rick provided. They slipped through the narrow opening, stepping in quietly, attuned to every sound. The expansive warehouse was lit by a few flickering yellow bulbs, each drip of water echoing, a damp moldy scent rising. The rusty pumps still emitted low groans. Rows of stout metal drums, paint peeling to reveal oxidized steel, towered high. Selina bent down, retrieving a discarded plastic label reading Pharos Labs, Tander, hazardous chemical. She scanned the surroundings, her hand on her chest to steady her racing pulse. The sound of ventilation fans whirred, creating a stifling atmosphere. Rick moved to an old steel table and knelt, laying out pH strips to collect a soil sample. He whispered, "This is the dumping site. This sample will tell us what chemicals were once stored here." Selina tiptoed to a bank of drums along a brick wall. She saw faint stenciled text, Omega-7 SC12. Her heart skipped a beat. This was the same toxin found in Emily's samples. She inhaled deeply and scooped a handful of nearby soil into a sealed bag. Rick immediately took out his phone and snapped pictures, the flash flickering in the darkness. "We need lab confirmation," Rick whispered. "Once we have this sample, we'll deliver it to my contact's private lab, not the official public office. That way, we avoid detection." Selina nodded, her eyes gleaming. "Where should I send it?" Rick pointed to a faint glow from outside. "There's a trusted lab I know. They'll cooperate urgently." She added, "We can't let the criminals discover the evidence. This is just the beginning." As they feverishly collected and sealed evidence, a corner bulb suddenly flared brighter, startling Rick. "Someone's coming." An ultrasonic motion detector had triggered. Selina stopped, crouched low, whispering, "We have to hide." They slid behind a cluster of drums, faces slick with sweat, breathing in the musty odor. Footsteps, male and female, echoed near, then stopped outside. She felt a cold sweat break. "Probably checking the systems. Or someone discovered intruders," Rick murmured. Selina pressed her ear to the crack, heightening her senses, whispered voices, faint rustling. A metallic click, the outer door was being jostled. Selina crouched even lower, her face taut as muscle. Rick grabbed her arm, but they remained silent, housing their breaths, eyes peering through a narrow gap. A dim flashlight beam swept across the concrete floor, illuminating paint flecks and farmland. Two figures emerged, clad in black, wearing hoods and masks. One carried a large backpack, apparently dumping something into a nearby trash barrel. She realized these were either the perpetrators or their accomplices, disposing of old evidence. Rick lifted his phone and turned on voice recorder. The screen showed 001, then 002. Seconds passed, each capturing faint clues, footsteps, hushed voices overshadowed by mechanical hum. Suddenly, one masked person's flashlight beam swung toward their hiding spot. Rick quietly pressed record, but couldn't cover his face. Selina inhaled sharply, shaking. "They've discovered us. Run." Rick grabbed her and pulled her toward a rear exit. Footsteps pounded as splintered wood scattered. Selina tripped, sprawling face first onto the cold floor, the evidence bag clutched tightly. As she scrambled upright, they found the back stairwell and dashed down multiple corners. Bursting from the warehouse, Selina's heart pounded as if to leap from her chest. Rick shepherded her around a dim corner. She gasped, shoulders trembling, "We made it. But will they follow our trail?" Rick watched the deserted streets. "We are safe for now. But soon they'll know evidence is gone." He frowned. "Selina, are you okay?" She nodded, her face ashen. "I'm fine. Just shaken." Rick placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You were brave. I'll call someone to pick up the sample. We must prepare for the next phase, securing the evidence." As the ambulance siren wailed in the distance, Selina and Rick returned to the notary office. They quickly sealed the soil and liquid samples, sending them to Rick's allied lab. Both sat quietly, staring at the New York night. Above, skyscrapers glittered, but below, darkness still thrived. Selina slumped in her chair, hand on her forehead, eyes on her computer screen. "We've revealed part of the truth, but not all of it. We must go further." Rick regarded her with admiration. "I'll always stand by you." She smiled softly, her eyes containing both hope and fear. "Thank you." Their synergy of legal strategy and forensic science was forging a unique alliance. Selina and Vincent would face deeper criminal forces, people willing to kill to preserve their secrets. But Selina believed that, if she held fast to her principles and confronted every trial, justice would ultimately prevail. And Vincent, stirred by Selina's unwavering spirit, didn't want her to face that perilous journey alone. Under the yellow glow filtering through the office window, Selina and Rick kindled their shared hope of unmasking death's secrets. New York's night grew darker, but the skyscrapers remained prominent. In that moment, they were not merely truth seekers, they were comrades challenging the darkness with the flame of justice and humanity. After the harrowing night at the Williamsburg warehouse, Selina Prescott couldn't sleep. In the early hours, she sat at her computer, compiling notes and preparing legal petitions. Yet words blurred before her, and the horrifying scenes in that warehouse lingered in her mind. She bolted upright, donned a wool coat, and stepped onto her apartment balcony to welcome the biting winter wind. Below, the East River glimmered under the Brooklyn Bridge lights. In the hush, she thought, I must pursue this to the end. She then called Vincent Blake. 24 hours had passed since the samples were sent to the satellite lab. They still awaited the microanalysis for toxin morphology. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Blake, the results are ready. Selina smiled and left the apartment to meet the dawn. She drove to the Manhattan District Medical Examiner's office. Vincent's office was just coming to light. He sat behind his glass desk, poring over data. Upon seeing her, he removed his headset and rose. The samples from Rick's lab arrived. Please come in. Selina entered, eyes focused. Vincent opened his computer, launching nuclear magnetic resonance analysis software to interpret the data. Complex spectrums appeared on the screen, highlighting characteristic peaks of each elemental isotope. He emphasized, omega-7 was identified with 98.6% accuracy, only a few clandestine labs in Eastern Europe can synthesize it. Oddly, traces of uranium isotopes appeared, indicating the raw materials were supplemented with a small amount of uranium. We must coordinate with the Federal Bureau of Chemistry to verify the supply source. Selina frowned, sipping a strong black coffee. Which organization has the capacity and ties to Eastern Europe? Vincent leaned back, eyes drifting into thought. Likely an international criminal syndicate, those who specialize in trafficking illicit substances from abroad. They often disguise themselves with satellite shell companies like Pharos. Fluorescent lights glimmered off his face, reflecting the gravity of the revelation. Selina placed her hand firmly on the desk. We need to find Evan Shaw, Pharos's phantom director. Can you trace the money's path or at least locate the bank where Emily received the transfer? Vincent nodded, brows furrowed. I'm not adept at finance. But I can request that the Federal Forensic Lab query the banking records if we have a warrant from the police. Selina remained silent for a moment, then urged, I'll draft that petition right away. You keep these results, the most crucial evidence. Late that afternoon, before Vincent left the medical examiner's office, he turned to Selina. Did you prepare the pH strips and tissue samples from the private lab? We can run an ultrasonics analysis on the organs to pinpoint the toxin within specific tissue layers. Selina was surprised by the depth of his knowledge. He wasn't just cold, but profoundly dedicated to his craft. She replied, I'll retrieve them immediately. Whatever you need, I'll do. She pivoted and left, leaving him alone under the flickering overhead lights, marking their first step beyond safety's border. Around 2 p.m., Selina returned to her law office, snapping photos of financial records. She sent an urgent email to a federal attorney, requesting support in tracking Pharos's international transfers. Simultaneously, she filed an emergency petition with the FBI to request global transaction data for Pharos Laboratories. The omega-7 evidence from Emily's sample was attached. She hoped this would alert the relevant authorities promptly. By early evening, Manhattan's golden sunset bathed the skyscrapers. Selina stood on her office balcony, watching the city below. Determination filled her heart, though worry lingered. The deeper she delved, the greater the danger. The criminal syndicate would not tolerate exposure. She also wondered about her relationship with Vincent. He was professional and talented, yet permanently aloof. What was he hiding? Meanwhile, in the medical examiner's office, Vincent compiled all autopsy data, tissue samples, spectral analyses, toxin sequencing. He called an old friend at the Federal Bureau of Chemistry. With the omega-7 signature and uranium additive, we can trace the clandestine lab's region. But we need to cross-reference with maritime and chemical import records. He requested shipment logs for chemicals entering the U.S. over the past 6 months. After the call, he sighed, "Next week, Selina and I must close in on this criminal network. We can't let them claim another victim." In a modest midtown Manhattan hotel room lit by warm yellow lights, the hum of the air conditioner filled the space. Selina Prescott sat on a sofa, her laptop open to 3 encrypted emails from Emily's Proton Mail account. She put on headphones, her fingers poised over the keyboard, eyes laser-focused. The Proton Mail interface was stark, dark gray and black, with a single column for the email list and a pane for the content. The first email's subject read Omega-7 analysis, preliminary report; the second, delivery confirmation, where number 42; the third, urgent, shipping location, verify ASAP. Selina exhaled sharply, her heart thudding. She clicked the first email, an unintelligible array of characters. She knew she had to decrypt it first. She called Vincent Blake. "I have encrypted emails that need decoding so we can learn more about Omega-7. His voice, cold as ever over the phone, replied, "Bring them on an unencrypted USB to the medical examiner's office." "I'll help." Selina smiled to herself, "You know exactly what I need." She ended the call and hailed a taxi, heading to the Brooklyn apartment Vincent had given her. It was an older building, painted sea green, on the 3rd floor. Inside, the apartment was cramped and sparsely furnished. An aging desktop computer hummed in the corner. Vincent led her to the desk and fired up the computer. Silently, he sat at the keyboard, inserted her USB, and tapped a few commands. On screen, a Linux terminal appeared, decrypting. 3%, 25%, 92% complete. Instantly, the email content flashed in plain English. Selina read it slowly. From emily.carter@protonmail.com, mail to emily.carter@protonmail.com. To weston.lab@protonmail.com, mail to weston.lab@protonmail.com. Subject: Omega-7 analysis, preliminary report. Date: March 2, 2025, 9:12 p.m. Weston. We have successfully synthesized Omega-7 SC12 under lab conditions. The yield is 88%. In vitro analysis shows its binding affinity to neural receptors is 1.3 times higher than SC9. I recommend testing early-stage paralysis to avoid leaving external bruising and minimize detection time. Please report the test results within 48 hours. Emily. The letter clearly indicated that Emily was directly involved in Omega-7 research, not merely an incidental investigator. Selina bit her lip, her emotions swirling with both distress and relief. She not only dove into the investigation but also directly produced and tested it. But why send it to Weston? Who is Weston? Vincent sighed, his eyes cold. Likely he owns the lab in Eastern Europe. But this email gives us a clue. SC12 is the most lethal strain. Emily witnessed its final development phase. Perhaps she was silenced for getting too close. He opened the second email. From weston.lab@protonmail.com, mail to weston.lab@protonmail.com. To emily.carter@protonmail.com, mail to emily.carter@protonmail.com. Subject: Delivery confirmation, where number 42. Date: March 3, 2025, 2:45 a.m. Emily. we've received the Phase 2 shipment. The transport team delivered 20 liters of Omega-7 SC12 to the underground warehouse at Ware Number 42 in Williamsburg. We're scaling up for industrial production. Strict secrecy is required. Do not involve any agencies. Change your contact address as instructed. Selina held her breath. The email showed Emily knew about Ware Number 42 in Williamsburg, exactly matching the warehouse she and Rick had infiltrated. She whispered, "This proves Emily was at Ware Number 42 just before she disappeared. She likely witnessed the shipment operation firsthand." Vincent closed the keyboard and stood. "The evidence is now unmistakable. Ware Number 42 was not just a storage site, it was the hub for exporting toxins. We must submit this to the federal authorities immediately." Selina nodded, eyes bright. "Can you help me compile a video of the decrypted emails and create a graphic showing Ware Number 42? I'll present it to federal agents." At that moment, the doorbell rang. Vincent opened the door and stepped back, ushering in FBI Special Agent Pete Johnson. Pete was responsible for the initial chemical analysis, a serious, gentle-faced man. He greeted Selina and Vincent, then said, "I received an email from headquarters. We need more evidence on Ware Number 42 to coordinate our investigation." Selina handed Pete the printed emails and the decrypted data. Pete flipped through them quickly, murmuring, "This is critical. We'll dispatch a team to conduct a raid tonight." Vincent intercepted him, placing the lapel mic closer to Pete's mouth. "Do you want that warehouse to blow up? They had 20 liters of Omega-7. If released, it could become a biochemical disaster." Pete stiffened, looking worried. "I need to inform my superiors. But for safety, we need a more precise location from you. Ware Number 42 is near the railroad but has no clear street number." Selina drew a hand-drawn map and pointed to the infiltration route. "From the start of the viaduct, turn right at the green gate. Follow the tracks about 200 meters to reach the warehouse. Behind it is a black canal. There's a small crawl space about 1.2 meters high that we slipped through. They had cameras encircling the perimeter, but I used a signal jammer to conceal us briefly." Pete paused to memorize every detail, then nodded. "Excellent. This is vital. Tonight, an FBI SWAT unit and a specialized biohazard team will serve the warrant. Dr. Blake, I need you on site to identify chemical samples. Ms. Prescott, you'll assist us on the legal front." Vincent and Selina exchanged a meaningful look. The decisive moment approaches. As twilight fell, New York's night grew overcast. Selina left the apartment, each step echoing in her mind, "Be vigilant." Vincent watched her go, his expression unreadable, though an undercurrent of concern stirred. This time, the danger isn't just about work, it could cost lives. Yet he knew Selina would not let injustice prevail. Night blanketed Williamsburg under a dim glow, streetlights casting yellow halos. New York's sky was overcast with heavy clouds, while a cold breeze from the East River swept through. The FBI SWAT team had assembled at a rubble-strewn corner near Ware Number 42. Armored vehicles and specialized SUVs were parked bumper to bumper, with alternating blue and red strobe lights snaking across the slick pavement. The operation, planned since the previous afternoon, had reached its critical moment. Selina Prescott, dressed in a black wool coat, jeans, and a knit cap, walked alongside Agent Pete Johnson, approaching the rusted steel gate. Vincent Blake followed closely, carrying a stainless steel case holding tissue and chemical evidence. They were now just a few steps from the warehouse entrance. Tension soared. Pete whispered into his radio, "Team A, be ready to breach the main gate. Team B, circle around the back. Team C, disable the surveillance cameras. Hold until my signal." The red strobes from the lights flickered, heightening the sense that the world was on the brink of upheaval. Selina tilted her head to watch the fingerprints on the corroded door. A low growl of an engine signaled an approaching armored vehicle. Then, in an instant, the SWAT unit, dressed in black tactical gear, helmets, and holding assault rifles, advanced on the gate. It's go time, Selina thought, her eyes fixed on the steel gate. Behind her, the rumble of the armored vehicle's engine grew louder. Without warning, the SWAT team fired the vehicle's ram, tearing the gate open. A cloud of dust and debris billowed in, mingling with shouted commands. Selina momentarily reeled but forced herself to stay upright. She saw officers sprinting past her, climbing a grated staircase, and the armored vehicle rolled into the warehouse. Vincent frowned, reaching into his coat to produce safety goggles and a gas mask. He handed them to Selina. "Put this on if you don't want to inhale chemicals." Selina nodded and quickly secured the mask, fumbling slightly to hide her flowing hair and only leaving her sharp eyes exposed. Standing beside Vincent, he looked every bit the field commander, steadfast and experienced. Smoke machines hissed as a small FBI drone hovered above, capturing aerial footage. Nearby, weathered trees cast spooky silhouettes. It was fully dark, only the SWAT team's headlights and strobes pierced the gloom. They advanced upon rows of metal drums stacked tightly. The acrid odor of chemical residues clung to the air, mingling with damp, musty notes. Wisps of bluish haze drifted, signaling the presence of lethal chemicals. Selina huddled close to Vincent, whispering, "Are you sure about this?" Vincent responded in a slightly louder voice, yet still urgent, "I'm certain. This smell is characteristic of omega-7 mixed with uranium. They've prepared cold pressurized containers for shipment." Selina shuddered, drawing a sharp breath of the frigid air. What if someone's still here? Vincent scanned the warehouse carefully. "I'll react swiftly if they do." She nodded, gripping her hands together to steady herself. Suddenly, a metallic clank echoed from a distant corner. A shadow darted between the drums. The SWAT unit immediately charged, weapons raised. "Identify yourself." A volley of gunfire rang out. Selina nearly collapsed, but Vincent caught her. Red flashes from the drone's spotlight shimmered on oil slick stains on the floor. She glimpsed a small, caked figure, face smeared with chemical residue, brandishing a canister and releasing a cloud of white vapor. SWAT officers coughed and stumbled back. Selina's throat burned, tears stung her eyes. Vincent sprang into action, vaulting over a drum to intercept the attacker. He shouted, "Dr. Blake, forensic pathologist. Surrender." But the masked figure, wearing a hazmat mask, ignored him and bolted toward a distant exit. Selina yelled, "Don't let them escape." Immediately, a SWAT member fired a warning shot, ordering the suspect to halt. The attacker faltered, staggered, then collapsed face first. Vincent frowned and approached cautiously, removing the mask to reveal a young woman whose face was smeared with yellowish chemical stains. Selina rose and rushed forward, bewildered. "Who is she?" The girl's voice was shaky and panicked. "I thought I had to protect them. I didn't." Her words choked with fear. Vincent assessed her, his expression hardening. "Who told you to work for them? Speak everything." Selina moved closer, gently placing a hand on the girl to calm her. "We won't harm you. Just tell us what happened." The girl quivered. "I was just a cleaning staff member. I worked for Pharos. They paid me to sanitize the vats, help move the chemicals. I didn't know any names. There were so many strangers." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she pointed toward the drums. "They surrounded us. Said we had to destroy evidence. I accidentally spilled some, so they chased me out." Vincent placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, gathering information while keeping her stable. Selina jotted notes on her phone, uploading them to Pete and Detective Peterson in real time. The three focused on the frightened cleaner. After questioning, the girl confessed, "I heard them mention Weston and Shaw." Selina's eyes widened. "Shaw, Evan Shaw, the phantom director of Pharos. So he ordered you to cooperate?" The girl nodded, voice quivering, yes. With rumors that INS was watching the shipment, Weston panicked. He ordered the destruction of some evidence and wanted to smuggle me out to Eastern Europe. I didn't want to comply, but they threatened me. She began sobbing, her body trembling. Pete ordered, take her to the holding area. We'll debrief her later. He turned to Vincent, thank you for neutralizing the threat so quickly. Selina stepped forward, voice serious, I need her as a key witness, but we must ensure her protection. Pete nodded, FBI's witness protection program will place her under special care. At that moment, Vincent shot Selina a look, we have a witness. But we still need to locate the core storage, a vault containing 20 liters of omega-7. That quantity can wreak havoc on a massive scale. Selina replied decisively, we'll collect and seal everything. Once that's done, we must apprehend Evan Shaw and Weston, and expose them all. Night deepened, headlights flickering, casting yellow reflections across the warehouse walls. Arresting the witness and securing the scene had become pivotal pieces in the case. The special teams moved methodically, vigilant in every step. Selina remained at Vincent's side, feeling their bond strengthen under the shared pressure of their mission. The tensest moment arrived when the overhead floodlights illuminated the entire warehouse floor. The metal drums were opened one by one, and chemical samples were transferred to an FBI hazmat transport vehicle. Vincent donned gloves, collected swabs, sealed and signed each evidence bag. Every seal represented proof, one by one knocking down the underground syndicate's power. Selina observed each procedure, taking meticulous notes to ensure no procedural errors that could derail the case. It took nearly 2 hours. By the time the hazmat vehicle departed, every trace had been secured. Pete, Vincent, and Selina stood before the warehouse gate, sweat glistening on their brows. The scene was shrouded in darkness, the wind howling through the rusty gate. Pete said, thank you both. Now we need to hunt down Evan Shaw and Weston. They may have already fled abroad. Selina looked upward, determination blazing in her eyes, we will not let them escape. Vincent met her gaze, his eyes reflecting hers, and we will make them answer for their crimes. Manhattan late night remained silent, but the battle against evil simmered beneath the surface. Selina and Vincent knew the journey was far from over, but they had, for the first time, faced their adversaries directly. Their first steps on the path of justice for Emily were clearly drawn. The next morning dawned unseasonably mild. A warm, golden sunlight filtered through the windows of the federal courthouse in Eastern District, New York. Selina Prescott, dressed in a navy blazer and clutching a thick legal file, approached the receptionist. I'm here for courtroom 406, there's an urgent hearing on Pharos Laboratories. The receptionist nodded with a smile, you are plaintiff's counsel, correct? Please proceed. They're waiting. Selina stepped into the courtroom, where numerous attorneys, reporters, and witnesses had gathered. To the left were the plaintiff's seats, to the right, defense counsel. Judge Wanderley, wearing a solemn expression, presided over the bench. Also present were the Department of Justice representative, FBI agent Pete Johnson, 2 witnesses, the SWAT team leader and the warehouse cleaner Mia Easton. Across from them, Pharos's defense attorney stood with a thick brief in hand, his gaze cold and challenging. Ms. Prescott, a pleasure to see you. Selina placed her file on the table and began crisply, Your Honor, I represent the Carter family, the plaintiff. We request an emergency injunction for the arrest of the defendants Evan Shaw and Weston, charging them with trafficking biological toxins and murder to silence witnesses. We have incontrovertible evidence, decrypted emails, chemical assays, and eyewitness testimony. She held up the printed decrypted emails, her eyes shining with unwavering resolve. Pharos's attorney sneered and interjected, Your Honor, this is nothing but ink on paper. Pharos Labs doesn't legitimately exist. We don't even know if Weston or Shaw are real. Moreover, The encrypted emails could easily be fabricated. He narrowed his eyes as if trying to intimidate Selina. Do you have physical evidence linking them to this? Those tissue samples from the victim don't tie to Pharos. I moved to vacate the emergency injunction. Selina remained unperturbed. She took a deep breath and pressed play on a prepared video. Behind her, a screen displayed footage of the FBI raid on ware number 42. Pete Johnson's voice echoed, "We agree with Dr. Blake that Omega-7 SC12 is a direct threat. Pharos Labs must be held accountable." The camera panned to the ravaged warehouse, labeled drums reading Omega-7 SC12. The entire courtroom fell silent. Judge Wanderley rapped his gavel. The video report of the ware number 42 scene is admitted. He then turned to the bench's clerk. "Now, call the witness, Ms. Easton." A young woman, her face still smudged from chemical residue at the warehouse, was led to the stand. The judge asked, "Please state your name and your role." She responded shakily, "I am Mia Easton. I worked as a janitor at ware number 42. I had no intent to commit a crime." The examination proceeded. Mia recounted her role cleaning the warehouse, discovering drums labeled Omega-7, and being chased by Weston and Shaw when she accidentally spilled some toxin. Her trembling voice painted a vivid picture of fear. The defense attorney loudly attacked her credibility. "You were a temporary night shift worker. Your testimony is unreliable. What proof do you have that these are Weston and Shaw? They aren't listed on any corporate records." Selina stepped forward, voice ringing, "Your Honor, Emily Carter's asphyxiated body contained traces of Omega-7. The decrypted email shows Weston's and Shaw's digital signatures. We have digital signatures verified, specifically identifying ware number 42 as the transfer point for those 20 liters of SC12. Without Pharos, Evan Shaw, or Dr. Blake's findings, none of this stands." She paused, eyes on the judge. "I respectfully request the court summon the Federal Electronic Verification Office to authenticate the digital signatures and IP addresses. Also, examine Delaware corporate registries for shell companies associated with Pharos." Judge Wanderley nodded gravely. "Ms. Prescott's request is reasonable. I will summon the Federal Electronic Verification Office for verification. Meanwhile, I will issue a temporary freeze on all Pharos Labs operations. The next hearing is set for next week." He struck the gavel. "Court is adjourned." Lawyers and witnesses rose. Pharos's attorney gave Selina a condescending glance. "We'll meet again in court." Selina smiled coldly. "I look forward to it." As she exited the courtroom, she saw Vincent waiting. He simply said, "We took a significant step." Selina met his gaze, gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you." After the hearing, Selina and Vincent returned to the medical examiner's office for word on the electronic verification. That evening, the FBI and the Federal Electronic Verification Office concluded that the emails couldn't be forged. The digital signatures for Weston and Emily matched perfectly, and the originating IP address pointed to a server in Warsaw, Poland. Additionally, the IRS confirmed that Pharos Labs had cleared a large tax debt only after depositing $500,000 into Emily's account. These pieces fit together like the final puzzle. Vincent handed the report to Selina, his voice low. "Signatures, IP data, and the financial transfers all point to Shaw and Weston. We can move to indict." Selina clutched the report, her heart racing, eyes brimming. Finally, justice is within reach. Yet deep inside, she knew the journey remained fraught. Evan Shaw might already have fled to Europe, and the race against time was about to determine whether the rule of law or the shadowy powers would prevail. A pale dawn light filtered through the trees along the East River, casting the medical examiner's building in a subdued glow. Vincent Blake stepped into the rear courtyard, grasping a to-go cup of steaming black coffee. Beside him, Agent Pete Johnson waited by an FBI pickup truck. Pete handed Vincent a photograph of Evan Shaw, a tall, Gaunt man with untidy black hair and icy eyes, and another image of Weston, a middle-aged Asian man attempting to appear inconspicuous. Washington just issued orders, Pete said. Shaw is likely fleeing the U.S. via the Buffalo border, heading into Canada and then on to Warsaw. I'm dispatching you with the Customs Border Protection Task Force to intercept him. As for Weston, he's still in Manhattan, looking for a way out. Vincent nodded, his face grim. Understood. And Selina? Pete glanced around warily. She's drafting the indictment for Weston at the federal courthouse in Edney. But we can't wait. We have to act now. Vincent's brow furrowed. I'll call her. He dialed Selina's number. After a moment, she answered, I'm listening. Shaw is trying to cross into Canada. Pete and I will move to block him there. You need to gather any remaining evidence to indict Weston. Selina's voice snapped with urgency. I'll send over the certified digital signatures and transaction statements right away. We'll detain Weston before he can flee. Their call was brief, each attuned to the urgency and determination in the other's voice. Later that morning, Vincent and Pete arrived at Buffalo Niagara International Airport. A cold gust broke across Lake Erie's waters, chilling them to the bone. They went through CBP checkpoints, where officers cross-referenced immigration records. Shaw was spotted on a coach bus from Manhattan, preparing to exit. Pete gave the nod. CBP officers began inspecting his luggage and documents. Shaw feigned calm, lashing out angrily, You have no right to detain me. I'm just going to Canada. Pete calmly said, Evan Shaw, you're under arrest on charges of trafficking a highly toxic substance and murder. Extradition procedures are being initiated. Shaw's jaw dropped, his hands trembling. I didn't do this. It's a setup. But faced with the overwhelming evidence, Vincent's test results and the digital email logs, he knew no denials would help. He was handcuffed and led onto the FBI van. Vincent allowed himself a small nod of relief. Shaw's in custody. One down. Weston remains at large. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Selina was in full action mode at her desk, typing furiously on her laptop in the ornate Prescott and Harrington office. Golden evening light illuminated oil paintings of New York's skyline. She filled out the indictment forms for the Eastern District of New York, charge, $500,000, from a Delaware shell company. Digital email correspondence. Chemical evidence from where number 42. Her legal assistant typed rapidly as she dictated, I request the court freeze Weston's assets, block his accounts, and seek his immediate arrest. Below, in Weston's law office, receptionist fields a call from Pete. Within minutes, Weston's attorney answered. He listened, then sneered, Agent Johnson has apprehended Shaw at the border, but that's just the beginning. Weston is safe. He has the means to disappear if needed. But counsel, I suggest you time your filings carefully, any flimsy allegations will be thrown out. He hung up, confidence radiating, they can't bring Ferros down. I'll win this. Selina felt a flash of concern, eyes drifting to the city view outside her window. She turned to her assistant, arrange immediate coordination with the Edney clerk to confirm Weston's whereabouts. I'm heading to the courthouse. Exiting the firm, she hailed an Uber to the building where Weston's office was located, on a prestigious Wall Street address. Late afternoon, Selina arrived at a 20-story building, where a doorman eyed her through his gray mustache. She showed her ID, Selina Prescott, federal counsel. I have a search warrant pending. Please call Mr. Weston. The doorman nodded and said, up to 15th floor, unit 1508. Selina ascended in the elevator, heart pounding, file clutched to her chest. The overhead lights flicked as each floor passed. When the doors opened, she walked down a long, fluorescent-lit hallway lined with polished wooden offices. A brass plate read Weston and Associates, Law and Consulting. Selina knocked, then entered the reception area flooded with daylight. Weston was seated at an oak desk, mid-call on his phone in a low, confidential tone. He wore a gray suit, his demeanor composed. Just before ending his call, he sensed her presence. She stood before him, voice firm, "Mr. Weston, I have a search warrant. Please come with me." Weston raised an eyebrow, his tone unruffled. "Ms. Prescott, this is unexpected. I've never been involved with Pharos Labs." Selina's lips pressed into a thin line. "The forensic findings, email logs, and the arrest warrant from the FBI, your days are numbered. You're being indicted for distributing a lethal biological agent." Weston's composure flickered, but he recovered quickly, a dismissive smile forming. "You have no jurisdiction to detain me. You will be sued for defamation." Selina stepped forward, tone unwavering. "We have every piece of evidence. You may retain counsel, but you can't avoid the facts." At that moment, two plainclothes NYPD officers arrived, calmly but firmly. "Evan Weston, you're under arrest for trafficking a biological weapon." Weston exhaled, resigned. "The Prescott-Blake alliance has conspired to ruin my firm. But leave it to the courts to decide." He raised his hands, and the officers cuffed him. Selina looked on, pulling in a steady breath. In this race, only the truth prevails. Vincent arrived behind her, and they exchanged a knowing look, each driven by the belief that, no matter how powerful the opposition, justice would win. That evening, Selina returned to her Upper East Side apartment. She collapsed onto the sofa, still clutching her thick legal file. Under the warm lamplight, she exhaled. "Emily, I've done everything I can. Will justice finally come for you?" She placed her hand over her heart, then rose slowly and walked to the bedroom. The room was silent, adorned with a painting of New York at dusk and a framed photo of two smiling friends. Selina traced the edges of the photo, then whispered, "It's only the beginning." 2 weeks later, winter had fully settled over New York, bitter winds cut through, and drizzling rain fell lightly on the streets. Vincent Blake stood before the medical examiner's office window, gazing out at the city, holding a cup of black coffee. Inside, Selina Prescott was reorganizing the case files of Emily's murder. Her eyes were hollowed from sleepless nights, yet her gaze remained determined. Vincent entered wearing a thick overcoat, carrying an insulated bag of tissue samples destined for the federal lab. The latest forensic report confirms omega-7 SC12 was produced at a Warsaw lab, under Weston's guidance. Selina exhaled with relief. "Excellent. I'll file for extradition. Shaw and Weston will finally face trial." They sat at a long conference table bathed in soft light. Selina turned to Vincent, her eyes gentle with gratitude. "Thank you for standing by me all this time. Without you, I don't know if the truth would have surfaced." Vincent replied quietly, his voice warmer than usual, "You performed your part admirably. I merely did what was necessary." A glimmer appeared in his eyes but quickly vanished behind his usual reserve. Silence enveloped them, laden with unspoken words. She recalled those nights in the warehouse when he shielded her from chemical fumes. She felt deep gratitude but hesitated to reveal her emotions. In her heart, Vincent had become a valiant knight, stoic yet always protective. She yearned for warmth in his cool eyes. Then her phone buzzed. "Det. Peterson." She answered, and his voice crackled with urgency. "Selina, I've got bombshell news. A similar incident occurred in Chicago. A victim displayed signs of omega-7 SC9. We're investigating, but someone just covertly seized and destroyed the evidence." Selina's brow furrowed, heart racing. "SC9? They've expanded their operations. This is dire." Peterson's voice turned icy. "No confirmation yet, but we suspect a global biological weapons network operating across multiple locations. They scatter to avoid detection." Selina's voice hardened. "We are facing not just Shaw and Weston but a far-reaching criminal web. We must cut them off at the source." She turned to Vincent. "Did you hear that? Vincent snapped from his reverie, nodding. SC9 is a previous generation toxin, still lethal within 30 minutes. They could weaponize it easily. His eyes glowed with fierce resolve. We need coordination across agencies to shut down their export routes. Suddenly, Vincent's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, his face darkening. An anonymous tip, we're number 43, an auxiliary warehouse in Chicago. He handed her the phone. Read it. Selina scanned the message, gasping. This Sunday afternoon, shipment scheduled. Location, Simas Street, Chicago. Her eyes widened. Another where, similar setup. Each time, they pick industrial sites near ports or rail yards. Vincent inhaled deeply. Tonight, I'm flying to Chicago. Will you come? Selina locked eyes with him, hesitating. She wanted to answer yes, but shame edged in. I'll request permission from the court to accompany you. Vincent nodded. We must move immediately. Your safety is paramount. It may be dangerous. They locked eyes in silence. The overhead neon lights in the medical examiner's building reflected their resolve, two hearts united against the darkness. Selina finally spoke softly, and I want you to stay safe. Vincent looked at her, a spark of emotion flickering in his gaze before he simply nodded. That moment marked the start of another perilous mission, an interstate flight, a race against time to halt another deadly shipment. Selina quickly packed her essentials, laptop, case files, phone. Vincent called Chicago's lead detective, Mason Boyd, to alert him. They had assembled a small SWAT unit, but needed a trained biohazard specialist. Vincent also packed a biohazard suit, respirator, and thick rubber gloves. Selina eyed the suit, whispering, "You look like an astronaut." Vincent smiled faintly, "Better than risking our lives." Under a gray sky, the private jet lifted off from LaGuardia, circling the Manhattan Bridge before heading west. Inside the cabin, Selina and Vincent sat side by side under soft overhead lights. Selina gazed out at Lake Erie's dark water below, breaking into conversation. "I can't sleep." Vincent nodded, voice hushed. "Too many unknowns. I think of Emily, then of Chicago's potential victims." Selina turned to him, drawing closer and gently touching his hand. "If the night is perilous, promise me you'll stay safe." Vincent held her hand firmly, unafraid to let her see his trembling fingers. "You must stay safe too. We're partners in this. Don't try to face everything alone. I won't let you go." Selina smiled, tears welling. "I wish time could freeze." Vincent squinted at her, their gazes locked. In that silent moment, the biting wind outside could not penetrate their inner warmth. The jet touched down at O'Hare International Airport under a starless night. Chicago's streets lay dark, lit by scattered amber streetlights. A SWAT convoy awaited, equipped with weapons and hazmat gear. CBP had relayed Pete's alert. The hour-long drive to where number 43 took them through desolate industrial zones by the Chicago River. Selina and Vincent rode in a black SWAT vehicle. The engine's hum was a low rumble as cold air streamed through cracked windows. Detective Mason Boyd, a weathered man with battle scars on his face, greeted them. "Areas secured. Just waiting on your orders." Vincent nodded, his voice gravelly. "Prepare yourselves, resistance is likely." Selina clenched her hands, nostrils flaring with both fear and determination. "We must bring them to justice. No more innocent lives lost." As they approached, the warehouse emerged in the gloom, a dilapidated concrete structure, its steel door shut tight, a tattered sign reading Biosafety Level 2 torn askew. A few rusted drums lay scattered on the cement floor, stained with chemical residues. Faint camera strobe lights flickered. The SWAT team swiftly deployed, Team A to breach, Team B on perimeter, Team C to disable alarm systems. Selina stood behind Vincent, folding her hands. Her heart pounded. Then a member barked, "Move in." The gate was rammed open, dust and sparks erupting. Selina cowered. Vincent shielded her as the SWAT team flooded inside. The interior was a chaotic scene: shattered drums, broken test tubes, the floor slick with chemical-like liquid, a sharp chemical stench. A small lab bench held beakers filled with a murky yellow solution, a single hanging neon lamp glaring. Selina shuddered as she spied two bodies in lab coats collapsed on the concrete floor, one male, one female, coated in dark yellow residue. Vincent quickly guided her away to safety, kneeling to check for signs of life before collecting liquid samples from the floor. Selina felt the world tilt as she moved to a filing cabinet. Rifling through folders, she discovered a file labeled Taiwan Partner, Shipment 0324, complete with invoices and export documents. Her eyes lit up. Pete must see this. A metallic clatter echoed from the rear corridor. They are here. A group of masked men in black rushed in. SWAT officers shouted, shouldering weapons, "Drop your arms. Freeze." A volley of gunfire erupted. Vincent yanked Selina behind a lab table, shielding her. Gunshots ricocheted. Selina clutched the file, pressing her back to the cold table edge as the masked attackers hailed a thick cloud of white haze from a pressurized canister. Officers coughed and retreated. Selina choked, tears burning her eyes. Vincent seized the moment. He crawled forward, grabbing a smoke grenade and tossing it into a corner. A gray cloud billowed, enveloping the attackers, hampering their vision. In the chaos, Vincent pulled Selina toward a rear exit. A SWAT officer seized the opportunity to aim and neutralize one of the masked figures. The gunshots ended abruptly. Under the swirling smoke, the special team moved quickly, eliminating the attackers, subduing any who remained. Selina, supported by Vincent, watched as the last offender was restrained. On the warehouse floor, now littered with debris, SWAT and biohazard units began cataloging and collecting all chemical vials. A mobile CT scanner was brought in to scan the bodies. Vincent and Selina observed solemnly. The slain pair were direct victims of the syndicate's cruelty, living proof of what they were fighting to stop. Hours passed. By the time the hazmat transport departed, the entire scene was properly processed. Pete, Vincent, and Selina stood in the cold night air, the wind moaning through the warehouse ruins. Pete said, "Excellent work. Next, we trace Shaw and Weston's remaining associates. They might still be at large." Selina gazed skyward, her eyes blazing with resolve. "We'll ensure they face international justice." Vincent looked at her, the same conviction burning in his gaze, "and we'll hold them accountable." Chicago's night was now quiet, but their triumph against the syndicate shone brightly. Working together, Selina and Vincent had confronted life and death peril and prevailed. In those final moments, they felt an unbreakable bond, united both by the pursuit of truth and an emerging, tender affection. Late winter Warsaw was shrouded in wintry mist, delicate flakes drifting through the air, dusting the old town with white. Historic architecture, centuries old, loomed with a melancholic dignity. The Imperial Courthouse of Warsaw, where the international trial was set to take place, stood on Nowy Świat Avenue, a gray limestone edifice with soaring domes and stately columns. Selina Prescott and Vincent Blake had just landed on a red-eye flight from the U.S. They emerged from Frederick Chopin International Airport, winds nipping at their coats. Both hurried past taxi stands and boarded a car arranged by the Polish police. En route, Selina stared out at the city's frost-laced streets, her heart pounding with anticipation. This trial wouldn't just decide Shaw's and Weston's fates, it would strike at the heart of a global chemical weapons network. Vincent patted her shoulder gently. "Don't worry. The U.S. provided the court with all pertinent documents. Once these cases reach European jurisdiction, penalties are severe for biological terrorism. I expect a fair outcome." Selina nodded, her grip tightening on his arm. "We've done everything we can. Now we rely on justice." Arriving at the courthouse, they passed through strict security checks. As they walked the marble corridor, each step echoed between walls adorned with portraits of famed jurists. The courtroom was vast. To the left sat prosecutors representing the United Nations and the European Union, to the right, the defense. In the center sat family members and counsel for the victims. Behind them, the gallery overflowed with spectators and journalists. Presiding over the bench was Judge Maria Kowalska, a middle-aged Polish woman whose steel-gray hair was pinned in a bun, her gaze unwavering. Flanking her were two international judges from Germany and Sweden, embodying a sense of global justice. Selina and Vincent took their places as Sean and Weston were ushered in, handcuffed and flanked by guards. Shaw's gaunt face looked surprised and fearful, sweat beading on his brow. Weston, wearing a gray jumpsuit, tried to maintain a stoic demeanor though fear flickered in his eyes. Judge Kowalska struck her gavel. The International Tribunal for the Omega-7 SC-12 case is now in session. Defendants Evan Shaw and Evan Weston stand charged with acts of biological terrorism, homicide, and trafficking of weapons of mass destruction. Prosecution, present your case. The prosecutor from the UN, an English attorney named Henry Morgan, rose. With a crisp British accent, he addressed the court, "Your Honors, based on evidence provided by the United States and transferred by the FBI, we possess irrefutable proof that Shaw and Weston orchestrated the production and distribution of Omega-7 SC-12, created and trialed in Warsaw, Poland, exported to the U.S. and beyond, with intent to harm civilians." Victim Emily Carter's murder was an early instance. Accompanying his statements, the prosecution displayed slides, footage from Where Number 42, Where Number 43, maps of the facilities, decrypted emails, and autopsy reports. Forensic pathologist Vincent Blake was next to testify. He stepped to the witness stand, microphone adjusted, delivering in American accented English, "Members of the court, I am Dr. Vincent Blake. In my autopsy of Emily Carter, I found strangulation marks around her neck indicative of asphyxia. Tissue and blood analysis revealed Omega-7 SC-12 levels of 200 nanograms per milliliter, sufficient to cause death within 15 minutes. Spectral analysis detected uranium isotopes, confirming the toxin's production at the Warsaw lab. My conclusion: Emily Carter was poisoned with Omega-7 SC-12, then forcibly strangled to conceal evidence. As Vincent spoke, slides displayed cross-sections of neck tissue, bruising details, and spectral graphs. Judge Kowalska nodded gravely, signaling acceptance of his testimony. The prosecution then presented Mia Easton's recorded statement, images from Where Number 42 and Where Number 43, and data from the U.S. Census Bureau detailing Pharos Labs $500,000 transfer to Emily. The defense rose to challenge the presentation. These could be fraudulent emails. Physical evidence is inconclusive. Where is proof that Shaw and Weston knowingly caused murder, rather than accidental contamination? But each defense point was swiftly rebutted by Selina or Vincent, citing robust scientific and legal documentation to dismantle their arguments. After several hours, the prosecution concluded its case. Judge Kowalska rapped her gavel, prosecution rested. Defense may present arguments. Facing a mountain of evidence, Shaw and Weston attempted to cast doubt, "These are minor procedural errors, no direct proof we intended murder." But their feeble arguments couldn't sway the court. Finally, Judge Kowalska addressed the gallery. "The court will recess to deliberate. We reconvene tomorrow for sentencing." A hush fell across the courtroom. Everyone sensed that the verdict was near. Selina closed her eyes, mouthing a silent prayer, "Emily, find peace." Vincent placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, murmuring, "We've done our part." That evening, Selina and Vincent were invited to a small ceremony honoring those who'd worked on the case, lawyers, forensic specialists, and law enforcement officers. The event was modest yet heartfelt, with a cello ensemble playing softly. Selina sat quietly, watching the flickering candles on the tables. Vincent, seated beside her, observed her with a gentle warmth, are you all right? Selina looked up and nodded. I am, though I wish I could sleep. Vincent gave her a tender smile. Rest assured, I'll stay awake for both of us. Selina returned his smile, tears glistening. Thank you. Later, back at their hotel, Selina tossed and turned. She finally rose, drew the curtains, and gazed at the neon-lit streets. The wind whispered through slender tree branches. She turned to find Vincent already seated on the bed, eyes half closed but smiling faintly. Sleep now. Selina crawled into bed beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. In the hush of the chilly Warsaw night, their hearts warmed, warding off the cold. In late winter Warsaw, the night was bitter, but Selina Prescott and Vincent Blake felt an inner glow. That morning, they dressed for the sentencing hearing, Selina in a black suit, a single pearl necklace, red lipstick, Vincent in a tailored black suit and a deep blue tie. They arrived at the courthouse before the scheduled proceedings. Polish security ensured no unauthorized access. The courtroom was packed: journalists, diplomats, human rights advocates. Judge Kowalska presided, flanked by her German and Swedish colleagues. Shaw and Weston were brought in, handcuffed, clad in gray prison uniforms, faces drawn and hollow from nights in detention. They tried to maintain composure, though their defeat was evident. Judge Kowalska struck her gavel. Today, the International Tribunal will deliver its final verdict in the Omega-7 SC-12 case. Defendants Evan Shaw and Evan Weston have been found guilty of biological terrorism, homicide, and trafficking weapons of mass destruction. Sentencing follows. A hush settled. Shaw trembled behind his handcuffs. Weston's clenched jaw was the only sign of resistance. The judge continued, based on the overwhelming evidence, digital communications, forensic analyses, eyewitness testimonies from where number 42 and where number 43, and the international guidelines against biological weapons, this court sentences Evan Shaw and Evan Weston to life imprisonment without parole. The German judge raised the mallet. Additionally, they are each ordered to pay restitution totaling $10 million to the families of the victims. Pharos Labs is hereby dissolved, and any associated assets seized by the state. The Swedish judge added, this verdict will be forwarded to Interpol to identify and apprehend any remaining co-conspirators globally. Judge Kowalska delivered the final blow. Court is adjourned. Another tap of the gavel, and it was all over. The courtroom swirled with stunned silence, then a ripple of restrained applause. Shaw slumped, muttering, Prescott, Blake. You'll regret this. Weston whispered, we will be vindicated. Yet their words fell on deaf ears. The alliance of law and truth had prevailed. As the courtroom emptied, Selina and Vincent met in the middle. She exhaled in relief, a radiant smile breaking across her face. Our journey is done. Vincent smiled back, tears sparkling in his eyes. Thanks to you and Emily. I am no longer alone in this fight. She surprised him with a quick, sweet kiss. The courthouse lights sparkled around them as clapping and muted excitement filled the air, a moment affirming that justice wasn't just a dry verdict but the fulfillment of hope and humanity. That afternoon, the Polish Ministry of Justice hosted a small reception to honor those involved. Selina received the International Guardian of Justice Medal, and Vincent was awarded Excellence in Forensic Science. At the podium, Selina addressed the assembly. Today, we stand not only for Emily Carter's innocent life but for the countless souls who might have fallen victim to biological weapons. Thank you to the court, the international coalition, and especially Dr. Blake, whose unwavering support and expert skill made this possible. Tears welled in her eyes. Vincent then spoke, in a calm, firm voice, I am Dr. Vincent Blake. Our role is to let evidence speak through bruises and tissues. But today, I see that justice cannot flourish without courageous hearts like Selina's. I am also pleased to announce the Emily Carter Memorial Scholarship, funded by my personal donation, to support female students in forensic science. May no more lives end in vain. The audience erupted in applause. Selina lowered her head in gratitude. Vincent's voice cracked with emotion. That evening, as they strolled through Warsaw's old town, each building shining under street lamp glow, they found respite in a cozy cafe. Jazz piano drifted from a corner stage. Selina ordered 2 mugs of hot cocoa. They sat close, sharing warmth. Selina murmured, "The beauty of this place surpasses even Manhattan's Hyde Park." Vincent smiled, stirring his cocoa. "Soon, we'll return to New York. A place without murder, without fear. I look forward to quiet days with you." Selina rested her head on his shoulder. "So do I. I want to travel, Paris, anywhere, just you and me." Vincent gently kissed her hair. "And I need no other person than you." Selina's cheeks flushed. "Then let's focus on saving the world first, and then on us." Under the amber glow of the cafe, they held hands, ready to depart for New York, and for the next chapter of a life neither of them could have imagined. Justice, though cold and relentless, had given way to a gentler, brighter hope, one forged in darkness but guided by the warmth of love. A month later, Selina and Vincent returned to New York. Winter's grip was loosening, snowmelts revealed the first buds of spring. Selina resumed her role at Prescott and Harrington, now expanding her practice to support organizations fighting against biological weapons. Vincent returned to the district medical examiner's office, but he also launched the Emily Carter Forensic Scholarship, enabling promising young women to study forensic science. One afternoon, they wandered through Central Park. They wore warm coats, walking along a path laid with gray stones. Sunlight pierced through budding branches, casting golden speckles on the ground. Selina bent down to pick a small crocus growing among last season's leaves and handed it to Vincent with a smile. "Today we only have to do 2 simple things, walk and hold hands." Vincent looked into her eyes, which shone with contentment. "That's all I need." They stopped by the lake's edge, watching white swans glide over the still water. Selina nodded, voice soft, "No matter how endless the darkness, the light of love can guide us." Vincent gazed at her, hope shining in his eyes. "Then let us walk forward, hand in hand." Under the early spring sunset, New York's skyline twinkled in the distance. But the truest radiance in their hearts was the bond they had forged, an unwavering flame of justice and love that would carry them into whatever chapters lay ahead.